I see the countdown.
Yeah.
That we're live.
Yeah, no, I think it's going live now. Yes, it's live. Fantastic.
Nice.
Yeah, there we are. Fantastic.
Everything's working. Perfect.
Yeah. Just for those of you that haven't been here before, welcome. Welcome to the Guitar Builders Collective chat. We do this every week. Last week we had technical issues, which we're trying to work out. I don't think anything we did wrong. It was some glitch in the program. But this week it's fine. In the description below, you can find a link to all our past archive of interviews. So we're doing these live streams now, but we used to do 1.5 hour long chats with people who were guitar builders, guitar players, amp builders, pedal builders, people that specialize in luthier type things. And those conversations were a bit like interviews with them and how they got into what they do, but also kind of just geeking out on tools and processes and things we like about guitars. So it's worth checking that out. What we do now is tend to just see what happens, see who's around, see who's joining us. I'm Daniel in the UK. There's Mark in America, in the States.
The States.
The States, yeah. Sorry. Are we just determined off air that Mark's not aware of what a pantomime is? So I'm imagining there's lots of people in the chat that don't know about pantomimes. But actually, in the chat, I can see mainly people that are based in the UK. So probably everyone does. So hi, Neil, Alan, Barry, and Owen. Welcome. Look, if any of you, you're regulars in the chat, if any of you ever want to come on the live stream, just send me a message.
Hop on.
Yeah. Oh, yes, he does. It's behind you, Mark. I tried to explain that to Mark. What I want to know is there a good pantomime that's on YouTube or something that we can link Mark to, or any of the American people? If anyone knows, let me know in the comments or in the chat. I know on CBBC they do one each year, but I think that would be too niche because it would have lots of references to TV programs Mark's not aware of. Anyway, I thought today we could do a bit of show and tell, just because just before we came on, I thought I'll quickly go on YouTube, see if there's any great topics that are going around guitar YouTube this week that we could sort of steal and talk about. But instead I found, are you aware of Corridor Crew, the Corridor Crew?
No.
It's a really good channel that I love that focuses on special effects in television and in film, sorry. And it's different types of special effects. So the episode that was on today, which I think was 35 or 40 minutes long, I only watched a little bit of, but it's on my list to watch tomorrow, is they were looking at that false perspective that's in Lord of the Rings, where you have Gandalf and
Frodo,
yes. I was trying to remember if it's Frodo or Bilbo. Gandalf and Frodo sitting opposite each other, and one looks big and one looks small, even though they're both human-sized people. And sorry, Barry's just recommended the Jim Davidson one as a pantomime. I don't think I'll show Mark that one. Hey, Jimmy. So anyway, it was about the false perspective. And what's great about it is they recreate these things. But what they were talking about was false perspective has been in cinema for 100 years, over 100 years. But it wasn't till Lord of the Rings that they were able to do it where the camera was moving. Because false perspective doesn't work as soon as the camera moves and you can see people from a different angle. So it was all about the motorized rigs that they had to move the characters and move the cameras at the same time. And what's great about it is the hosts of the show, there's normally one of them that takes up the challenge of whatever the thing is, false perspective in this case. And then the other ones sit around and they watch examples of it from movie history. And they all kind of geek out on how it's done. And they're all amazed. They're all trying to work out things. So it's really, really good fun. And so as a result, I didn't see anything guitar related. I got totally distracted by that. Anyway, so let me show you the guitar. Have you heard of the Stone Roses?
Yeah.
So I'm not necessarily a big Stone Roses fan, but a client contacted me who is, and for Christmas, so he contacted me, and we agreed to do the job a few days before Manny died. Manny, the bass player from the Stone Roses. But we agreed to do it for Christmas. So this is the guitar I've been working on. It's a copy of John Squire's guitar from the I Want to Be Adored video. Now, from what I've managed to work out, the album and all the singles off of it, or at least a few of the singles, had artwork like this that John Squire himself made. So he made the artwork that appears on the albums, and then on some of the guitars, his guitar, Manny's bass, and maybe a couple of others, he recreated the artwork that's on the singles and albums covers. So it's not a print of it, he's remade it. So I can get copies of the single cover that this is based on, but the only photo I can find of this guitar, and I've been on the Stone Roses forums and things, is by doing still shots of the video, that the I Want to Be Adored video that this is from, because there seem to be no other photos of it. The only other photos I found, lots of people have sent me, are on the John Squire kind of guitar biography page. There's a mock-up of it, which isn't the actual guitar. It uses the actual artwork from the single, which is slightly different. And then there's a couple of people that made copies of it, and they're not quite right either. So I've had all these sort of blurry videos that are like 420 quality off of YouTube that I've taken stills from. And also the video's filmed in a strange way, so there's a weird tint over it all, so it's hard to get the colours right. So it's been quite a process, but I've been enjoying it and listening to a bit of their music. And I hadn't really registered what a great guitarist he is.
It looks so cool, Emil. Yeah, you did a great job. Can you talk about your process? Like I see a clear coat. Is there a clear coat on it?
Yeah, so this isn't finished yet. I'll explain what I've done in a minute. Just to say, I remember Love Spreads when I was a teenager, that Stone Roses song coming out, and it was really good. And I learnt to play it on guitar because it's the first song I learnt to use slide on, because I loved it. But then, like a lot of things as a teenager that I listened to, I'd often listen to a song and really like it, or listen to one album and love it, and then for some reason I wouldn't listen to another album or more songs and by that band. I think it was often because the only way I could do that is by buying the album or buying more music, and I couldn't afford to just buy it because it wasn't out there. It wasn't just like on YouTube. There wasn't a YouTube. So I've been enjoying listening to it. So I'll walk you through what this is. So he bought the guitar second hand and sent it to me, and it was in pretty good condition, and it had a poly finish on it. So all I had to do was, I didn't have to sand it back, because thankfully, because I don't know how well this can come up on the picture, it's an arched top here, but at the front it dips down and raises up again. So it's got this kind of shape to it and comes up again. So that made it quite, it would have been taking me absolutely ages to sand it all back. But luckily, because it had a poly finish on it, it was easy to just clean it up and sand off the surface. So I sand it back with, I think 600 grit. No, sorry. I think I used on that one probably 240 grit. So it's quite rough.
But do you go up in grits after 240?
No, not for this stage. So that was to get rid of all the dirt that was on it and to really scuff into the surface. And then normally I'd do it a bit differently, but I didn't, because he wanted it for Christmas. I had to do it a bit faster than I wanted to do. So instead of doing all the same primers that I would normally do and the early stages of prepping it, I then shellacked the surface to sort of seal it all in, and then I sanded that back with 400 grit. So the shellac I put on by hand with a brush, and then I sprayed it with white poly. So I did, I think, as far as I remember, I did one session of the white poly, so that's 3 coats, and then sanded that smooth. And what I did on this one is, normally I would get the base colours on, then splat the paint on. But instead of splatting the paint on, I used masking fluid like you have for watercolour painting, which is essentially latex, liquid latex. And I splatted that all over it. So the white is masking fluid on top of white. And then I sprayed it with this colour, the creamy colour, which is a Montana Gold. So Montana's the brand, Gold is their series, and the actual colour of the paint is called Coffee. So I sprayed it in coffee, and that meant that I could potentially peel the masking off and you get the white underneath, and it would be quite smooth, because to get white on it like that, it would have to be quite thick. And I was a bit worried about putting it on thick, that it would mean because he wanted a smooth finish. If it's thick, then it means you've got to do lots of clear coats, lots of sanding back, and I haven't got time to do that before Christmas. So I put that on, and then the blue I put on with a spray gun, an air gun, and that's just I can't remember what it's called. It's a blue air gun, not air gun. I'm saying the wrong word. Airbrush. And then I splattered the black on, and the black's a very thin paint, and so I couldn't quite get the thickness and the quality of the thickness that he had on his original artwork because it's a thin paint. And again, I didn't want to put it on too thick because it would build up. So what I did is I put it on thin and kind of dragged it roughly as I thought it was. And then when it was dry, I went over with a black Posca pen to make it look more like a thicker black paint. Then I peeled off the masking fluid to reveal the white. Oh, and in between I sprayed the red and the yellow. Peeled off the masking to reveal the white. And then I sprayed one session of clear on it. Sanded that back, so it's when I sand it back, that helped me get it smoother, but it's still got some of the texture of the white and black. So every time I sand it back, you're sanding through some of the paint, you're sanding through the clear, sanding through some of the raised black, and then I just touched it up with the paint pens, then did another clear, and then did the final touch up. So sanded that back, did the final touch up, and now it's got today the first coat of Spray Max, which is the clear top coat that I'm putting on. And then tomorrow I'll give it a light sand and put the Spray Max second coat on.
What's Spray Max?
So just before I say, just quickly say, with the Spray Max and the light sand that I'll do between coats, I'm not going to sand back between anything because it's smooth now. So when I got to the stage that I put Spray Max on, it's smooth. Spray Max is brilliant. It is my go-to from a can finish, and I used it for years. When I stopped using my air gun, spray gun, I started using this, and it made me not want to go back to using a spray gun because it's so easy to use. So one reason it's good, Spray Max is a good quality can with a good nozzle, so it sprays really well. I don't think I've ever had any problems with it spattering at all. Spray Max is the brand, and they have a few different versions of it. I did a live about it today, in fact, when I was doing this. So I was talking about it in here, showed how it worked, and then I went into my work spray booth next door. I had another camera so you could see what he did. The Spray Max I use is a two-part Spray Max 2K, and it's in a can. It's not in here, in fact, unfortunately it's in the spray booth. The can has a little red lid button in the lid, and you take the button out, and underneath there's a little sort of thing you can put the button on, and when you push it down, it opens up inside a little extra sort of canister of liquid, so the two parts of the liquid mix in the can, so then you can shake the two parts up and spray it, and you've got a pot life of about, well, it says 24 hours, but I've always managed to get 48 hours out of it before it hardens. But because it's two parts, it hardens chemically, so it's much harder than a air drying spray that you can put on something. It's ideal for me now because I've got this deadline to do it, but it just finishes so well, and you can get it in matte or gloss. I'm doing it in gloss, but it doesn't really matter because any gloss finish I do, I always sand back before I do the final polish. So you're sanding it back. I'll sand it back with maybe 800, then 1,000, then 1,200, all the way up to 3,000 before I then compound polish on it. I can do that with a matte. So if I've got matte, I can just polish it up to be gloss. If I've got gloss, I'm going to sand it back before I polish it up. So I sand it back and it can be matte. So it's sort of irrelevant for this. If you were just doing it like it's made, which is for automobile work, then I think you wouldn't bother sanding in that way. You might just put it on and leave it, because on a smooth surface, it looks pretty good.
Cool.
But it's brilliant two-pack stuff. So that's gone on it. Because it's flat from the clear coat I put on before, which was water-based, it's flat. So I can put that on, do a light sand tomorrow, then do the final coat. Then on Wednesday, I can buff it, reassemble it, and then post it to him in time for Christmas. But as Eddie mentioned to me when I told him I was doing this, Eddie from Electric Lady Guitars, said that he's had problems when you send things so quickly that they get the marks from the sort of inside of the case that appear on the surface. Now, the problem I've got is the base coats are the poly is 2-part, so that's definitely dried hard by now. Then the color is all the water-based stuff, so it could be too soft. But I'm very confident that I put my coats on not too thick, and they will dry in the 24 hours between the coats. But even so, I would recommend as soon as he gets it, that he takes it out of the case and leaves it hanging, because I would not normally send it to someone straight away. I'd normally leave it at least a couple of weeks, if not a month. But it's Christmas. Someone suddenly wants something before Christmas and they're offering to pay for it, and I've got time to do it, so I'm going to do it.
It's a cool project, Daniel. I really like
yeah,
it.
Really. You know, sometimes projects come in that are really interesting. The problem I would say with something like this, when you're doing it for someone else, is how you charge for it. Because I just charge a certain amount for finishes, and some finishes take a lot longer than others. And this one, if you add up the hours for it, I couldn't like charge him an hourly rate because it would just be way too expensive. So, you know, I'm back in that not the best job to earn money from, but I'm still getting paid for it. I'm happy I'm getting paid for it. I'm not complaining about that. But if I had this and another job and the choice of them, and I could only do one for the money, the other job's probably more cost efficient, but probably not as fun. So
right.
Actually better. I remember seeing a luthier on Instagram, and honestly, I cannot remember who he was, but he was a New York-based luthier, and he was clearly very experienced and had a business that had a lot of work coming in. And he said he now only does very basic setup stuff because he's got enough setups coming through that he can just live off the setup costs. But if someone wants him to refret something, then that's going to take up more time than like 2 or 3 setups, but he can't charge 2 or 3 setups worth of money. So he sends all of those slightly more complicated jobs down the road. I don't think I could do that.
On that note, does anybody know how long it takes for a Plek machine to do a fret job? Like duration, like from start to finish? I heard the strangest number, and I don't know if the number is real or not. I heard 8 minutes. I can't confirm or validate whether that's true or not, but that seems pretty extraordinary.
On the Andertons YouTube channel, are you aware of Andertons?
Yeah.
Of course, everyone's aware of Andertons. They had Paul from My House Studios on, and it was called something like Luthier versus Plek. So they him and the in-house tech, Paul and the in-house tech from Andertons, competed to set a guitar up for Lee to Lee's spec. Paul just using handheld tools, and the main tech using the Plek machine. And in that, they showed it all happening, and I'm pretty certain they talked about the timing for that. But I cannot remember what it was.
Yeah.
Because they were talking about the kind of cost analysis benefit of how much time it takes to do stuff. It was really interesting because at the end, Lee was so indecisive about what he was saying, you couldn't tell which one was better. But he was basically, I think he was saying Paul's was better. But
I think, here's what I think. Well, here's why I asked, because here in town, a lot of the guys that I work with, there's only one Plek machine in town, by the way, where I live in Austin. There's one Plek machine. So it's the only place you can get your guitar plecked. And everybody who I know wants to go there to get it plecked. I'm like, well, hey guys, I could do a fret job. Like I can do your fret job easily. And they're like, yeah, but can you pleck it? I'm like, there's like this, like, I guess still this mystique and this romance about the robot doing it.
Yeah.
And I believe that you get the identical results. The only thing the Plek machine can do that I can't is do it quicker. And I like to know exactly like how quick that is.
I guess if you were doing it for someone, you don't have to do it quicker. No one's coming in saying, oh, I need my frets leveled in 8 minutes. They just want it done. They just want it done right. Okay.
Right. No, it's not about the quickness. For me, I think the only difference is the quickness. But for them, I think it's like the top tier of like fret work. right? Because it's a machine and a laser and whatever. I mean, even now, like I know Gibson and the Gibson factory, they have 4 Plek machines, and every Gibson gets plecked before it leaves the factory. Like that seems to me like the future.
Yeah, I mean, it seems to me that if you can get the cost, as Gibson probably have, down by having multiple Plek machines, you've got the business they've got and the turnaround. It's a no-brainer because it's going to be good. Whereas we know that things that come out of factories by hand aren't always good. But that's no reason that they shouldn't be good. Barry's just said Emerald Guitars have a video including Peppermint Machine. I don't know who Emerald Guitars are, so I'm going to look them up. Thanks, Barry. Yeah, like we've definitely talked about this before, and we've talked about this before with people who commission guitars to be built en masse abroad. Like I remember Andrew Knight from Charvel saying that the factories can do what you pay them to do. So if you pay them more, they can spend more time on it, and it'll be better than if you pay them less. So maybe that what am I saying there? So you can pay to get the quality of a Plek out of it, but if you've got the Plek machines and they last for how long does a Plek machine last?
It's about as long as a CNC machine, I guess. Pretty long. Yeah, Emerald makes carbon fiber.
Have you played a Plek guitar?
Yeah, my Gibson, like my first Les Paul I bought it from Sweetwater way back in the day, 2009 or 2008. And Sweetwater was basically plecking every single Les Paul, and I didn't have to pay extra. Yeah, it was the fastest guitar I ever played. Like it was the 50s neck, so it was the fattest neck Gibson puts on a Les Paul, and it was the fastest neck I ever played. Like it was incredible.
That's interesting. I don't know if I could spot, because I'm not as like you. I don't play enough guitar to necessarily know the difference in the feel of the playing. What I could tell, I think, is looking at it, how well the frets, how good the frets looked, and then I could feel how well they played, and I could check how well everything intonated and played. But then the actual experience of playing is different to that, if that makes sense. The experience of playing it, and you're saying it plays fast, it plays slow, it does the bends presumably how you want it. Would I know the difference? Would I notice the difference between that and just a well set up guitar? I don't know. I need to go and find
I think what you're saying is more like a dressing. Like when you look at frets and you see that they're dressed and polished. A Plek machine doesn't do that. Like someone still has to like polish the frets, right? I assume.
Oh yeah. Oh, I guess I hadn't thought about that.
Yeah, because the Plek machine is just grinding frets and ensuring that you have that, whatever it's doing. Like when we do fret jobs, we ensure the frets are coplanar, right? But I don't know what a Plek machine is doing. I don't know if it's doing the same thing or if it's compensating in some way due to like discrepancies in the fretboard or whatever.
Yeah, as Eddie said, you need a tech to run the machine as well, who's got the knowledge of how to run it properly. I think that's something Anderson talked about a bit. It would seem weird that a Plek machine can't get to the point where it's nicely polished, because it seems like something a machine could do quite easily.
Yeah, maybe one day, or maybe they're doing that these days. I don't know. I don't know enough about them. But I did see, like, I was watching the Gibson factory tour, and they have several Plek machines, and they already have like a jig. Like they put the guitar in this like aluminum jig, 2 seconds, and they put it into the Plek machine. That setup time is nothing. Like it's very easy for them to get it in and out. And then I don't know how long a Plek machine takes, but clearly it's got to like do some kind of analysis, and then it's going to do the grinding. And then after that, I don't know what happens. Like, I don't know where the polishing happens.
So I've got a thought to come back to in one moment. Superfuzz has just said, do you think the plec was worth it on that guitar?
On my Les Paul, yeah, for sure. If I was buying a brand new guitar, I would have it. I mean, it comes plecked from Gibson, but if I was buying another brand from Sweetwater, I'd have them pleck it 100% brand new. If it's not a new guitar, then I would just do it myself.
So do you find on the ones you do yourself, you set up yourself, they can play as well as the plec?
Yes, 100%.
Yeah, of course they can.
Yeah.
So here's another thing I've heard you talk about, and I completely agree with this. If you're putting a new neck together with new frets, why on earth do you have to do a plec on it? Why do you need to grind it down and file it? If you're doing it properly, all the frets should be perfect. So Gibson should be able to do that. Surely they should have them. They do everything by machine anyway. Surely the fret should be equally nicely pressed in all along each fret. Every fret should be ready. Every fret should be as perfect as the fret material is before it goes in.
Yeah, exactly. I've said this before. And the only conclusion that I've come up with is that it's the fret material itself and inconsistencies and tolerances in the fret wire.
Right.
That has to be the only thing. Because if you build a fretboard, if you build a neck on a CNC, if you build a fretboard in a CNC, everything should be perfectly level, right? No one's using their hands to sand and make that radius. The machine does it. It's perfectly level. And if you can press and find a way to press each fret in with the same amount of pressure, then technically, like, they all should be the same. You shouldn't need a fret level at all.
Yeah,
but,
I mean, as a few people like Gio saying, frets aren't identical. You've got the intolerance of frets, as you just said. But surely it's cheaper and better for a company to make better frets than to make plec machines for everyone, isn't it?
Well, yeah, like I said this before. There's only, as far as I know, 2 fret wire companies that publish their tolerances. Just 2, and one of those is Jescar. They actually state, here are the tolerances for a fret wire, plus or minus whatever. No one else tells you the tolerances when you're buying fret wire. Nobody else. Now it's that, surely you're right. Maybe it's cheaper to actually get the fret wire done correctly than it is to buy a plec machine. But then there's all the other options as well. And that's just basically rethinking frets in general. And I did experiments making resin frets.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have it right here.
Let's do them.
Show and tell. And so the idea is I made one perfect fretboard with one perfect fret leveling and polishing. And then I cast the whole fretboard, and I literally made one fretboard every 24 hours. I made 7 of them. You need 24 hours for the resin to cure. And I put them on these guitars, and they play perfectly. I mean, they're just like resin frets, right? And that's just a rethinking of this old idea. And it's not terribly useful or pragmatic, but it's just the idea of thinking outside the box. What other things haven't we thought of to figure out the whole fret thing?
There must be materials out there that we're not aware of that would be perfect.
Yeah. I got the idea from a Toga man who builds the cellos, and he makes these I don't know what they are, phenolic fretboards, but they're basically cast in some kind of secret material with the frets already in them. And so he doesn't have to actually build them. He just has someone manufacture them, and he puts his fretted fretboards on his cello guitars. And that's where I got the idea from. But I don't know what material he's using.
I'm going on a total tangent, but I think it will make sense. And I may have mentioned this before, but I was reading recently about self-healing concrete. And self-healing concrete, essentially, the thing that makes concrete fail is when water ingresses into it into cracks. The water freezes, and then it thaws, and it just makes those cracks bigger and bigger. So what you need with self-healing concrete is a concrete that when a crack appears, it fills the crack up. And the way that's done is something's mixed into the concrete now, which is, I'm going to call it a bacteria, but it's not bacteria. I can't remember exactly what it is. And what it does is it lays dormant until it feels moisture, and then it starts to do whatever it does when it comes to life. And part of that process of it coming to life is it produces an enzyme that fills the cracks. Fantastic.
I love it.
And that bacteria, whatever it is, was found in the bottom of the oceans at volcanic cracks in the ocean where hot air is escaping, and these bacteria live around the edges of that. A place where people thought life couldn't exist, and they found it. So someone somewhere, some scientist somewhere has written a paper on that. Some other scientist has read it and thought that would work with concrete, and they've made that sort of weird connection. And I feel like that's the sort of thing you're encouraging, that idea that we need some guitar builder who happens to be in an industry that uses the self-healing fret material that you can cast your guitar from, your guitar neck from, and make it with that material. And for guitarists not to think that it's a shit idea because Fender didn't do it in the 50s or whatever.
Right.
Own
That's the big
bacteria.
hurdle.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love the idea. It's so sci-fi because like the concrete is alive essentially, or there's some element of it that's like organic. And I always thought about that too. Like, wouldn't it be cool if we had guitars that were like semi-organic, semi-alive? It's so sci-fi. I love it.
I'm going to have to reread that because I can't remember exactly what it is. It's not calcium that they produce. I need to reread it because I think I've mentioned that multiple times now. So I want to reread the book and get that in my head so I've got the facts down, because it's fascinating. The thing that's fascinating to me about that is the idea that any kind of scientific research is relevant because you don't know how it might be used in the future by someone else.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm just sort of catching up with the chat. If you're watching in the future, you can read the live stream chat. It's always quite fun. And yeah, there's some regulars in there. Menno, I'm excited that Menno's there because he's never normally makes it live. So it's great to have you back on, man. I've got another show and tell. I'm really happy with what we've got here. I don't know how well it's going to come out on this camera, but it's a
oh yeah, I see it.
That relic, and it's a totally random kind of process, so you can't really control it. But this one, I'm so happy with how it's come out. It's sort of the whole edge of the chrome's been etched away in little sections, in like bubbles in it have as well, but it's got this sort of chrome bit in the middle. I'm not sure it looks like a realistic kind of thing that might happen to a pickup cover, but I just love it as a kind of apocalyptic, strange look.
It looks cool. And the humbucker cover is made out of brass.
It's chrome. It's one you buy that's chrome, but that's normally brass coated in chrome.
So like when you see that layer on the edges, is it like a brass color? Because it's hard to see.
Yeah, that's the brass color around the edge. And what you can't quite see on the camera is that's definitely like the chrome's like 0.5 millimeter thicker. So it sticks up. So there's a little lip on it.
That looks cool. And that's done by the same process you talked about last week then, right?
Yeah. This is sort of the opposite. It's gone the other way on this one. Totally random, but yeah. Yeah, same process using the ferric chloride, which I happen to have here.
Nice.
Yeah, I've been doing more of it this week. I feel like I don't need to just keep relicking things, but I could happily just keep relicking things until I get some amazing stuff and then put it on guitars. But then I need to build loads more guitars, and I need to stop building guitars for a while. I need to start finishing the guitars I've got. There you go. I'm trying to work out what's going on in the chat here. It's like when people say Roman roads last 2,000 years and current roads last 20. God, yeah, this is so boring. But we've got leaking roofs at the moment in our house, and it's just because they've used the wrong. They've used glass fiber on it, and round where we are, the weather's quite bad, and glass fiber doesn't seem to last on roofs around here at all. But I'm sure there's some roofs that were glass fiber mixed in with some bacteria from the bottom of the ocean or something, some miracle material that makes them last. Oh, thank you, Left Andy, for watching my structural video earlier. Yeah, so basically what I've decided to do, because I don't have time to make YouTube videos, is when I'm doing things like spraying that Spray Max, I'll just do a live showing how I'm doing it. So that's what I did earlier. It's kind of quite fun because it makes me as well. It's not just fun, it's helpful. It makes me think through the process a bit. Because sometimes we're an automatic pilot, which is nice. I think I mentioned I've got Toby in and we're doing these 1-string guitars, and the last few times he's been in, we've done things that he's not done before. So it feels like by going over the process with him, talking through it, it's reinforcing how I do it and making me more aware of all these things that have become ingrained and natural to what I do, which is what happened when I wrote that book. Having to write down processes of things you do every day makes you think about them in a different way. It's good fun having to think about that. I think what I'm trying to get at is I like teaching, and I don't know how I could teach more, but having Toby in's made me reevaluate that, because in the past I've had people say, oh, can I come and do some work with you? It's like, I'm in a tiny workshop, how will it work, what can we do? But actually it's worked out with Toby because we're working on something that is something we've co-designed and is useful in the long run, and we're learning from each other, so it's great. Sorry, I'm doing one of those other self-help sessions with you, Mark.
It's all good.
So Eddie's just asked what grain fill I use. Hey, Mark, do you use a particular grain filler, or do you just change it all the time?
I don't really do a lot of spraying or grain filling. I don't like grain filler. The last one I used was that water-based one, the aqua coat one.
Yes.
And then I went off of that because it shrunk too much. And then the other one I used was the resin-based one, which is called, what's it called? It's made out of resin. It's a resin. And that was way too much sanding. And I just kind of like, I don't have a favorite. I absolutely don't.
Yeah, there's one that Ty from Shot the Fox always uses that's a resin-based one that I've not used. I'm just going to see. Eddie sent me his process. I won't read it out unless you let me, Eddie, because I don't want to reveal your hidden secrets. But his process is quite different from mine. Doesn't mean there's a right or wrong way, but it's just interesting hearing the different ways of doing it. But I've recently started. I used to avoid grain filling because it seemed like an effort, and I just used lots of primer, sandback, more primer, sandback, more primer, sandback. But I have started grain filling recently. But I find it need to grain fill, need to seal it, need to grain fill again. So it's quite a long process, but it's worth it to get a smooth finish. And I have been using, simply because they sent me all their stuff, the Nitolac grain filler. It's a water-based one, and it seems to be really good. But I'm not that experienced. Before that, I used a Rustin's grain filler. Rustin's is a brand that you can get a lot in the UK. I don't know if that's something you can get over in the States. Eddie said I might be missing something out, but this is after he stained his guitar. He then fills with clear coat grain filler, and then shellacks, then more grain filler if it's required, and then more shellac up to 4 coats before then spraying the clear coat. And that is very much like I remember when I studied French polishing and like traditional finishing, that a lot of things are just long processes. And sometimes like putting a coat on doesn't take long, but then you've got to wait for it to dry and then sand and then put another coat on. So things which seem quite simple can take days and days and days.
I saw a guy recently on YouTube. It kind of changed my mind about the whole grain filling process. What he did was he sprayed the sealer first, then he grain filled it. It kind of felt like when he was grain filling after the sealer, it literally was just kind of like wiping on and wiping off, because the sealer kind of helps you just kind of wipe off the excess instead of having to like it stick to the wood and you have to sand. And I thought that was pretty cool. Grain filling after sealing.
Yeah, that's exactly what Eddie said, I hadn't really thought about it. And I guess I hadn't really, I mean, Nitrat do a clear, but I hadn't really thought about the clear as a grain filler until I'd seen people using resin and their clear one. But again, I've never used it. I just, I don't know, I've used resin for so many years. I don't really like using it very much anymore when I don't have to. I think the problem I have with resin is I used it when I was at university. And at university, I used it for my own work and for the artists I used to work with. And you could only get resin at that time from the local sculpture art suppliers. And it was really expensive and really toxic. And the way it worked, not like contemporary resins, is it was one liquid and you dropped the catalyst in it by drops. So it would be like one pipette drop per 100 milliliters, something like that. So it's a real pain, but it was really good stuff. And I still occasionally use it, but it is so toxic. But it works really well. But over the last few years, I've just tried loads of different brands of Amazon. And there's one I've settled on recently, which I saw Paul again from Milehouse Studios uses a lot. So I thought I'll give that one a go. And actually, it's VOC free, doesn't smell, so it's not toxic, and it seems to be pretty good. So I've been using that, and it's fun, but it's also messy, and sanding it is a pain. So I don't really like doing that.
Yeah, I think Z-Poxy was what I was looking for. I think Gio put it in chat. Z-Poxy is the one I used, and I don't like that one either because it does dry. It dries hard, and cleanup is kind of a mess. And there's a lot of sanding involved. I didn't really care for it. I don't know. I don't have a favorite anything. You need to find one.
Super Fuzz in the chat has said that he has stopped grain filling and hand rubs on oils. I've got to say, again, for the book I was writing, I had to do a lot of examples. So I used a lot of oils I hadn't used before and a lot of waxes I hadn't used before, along with the ones I had. So I did loads of tests. And by doing them, I just started to really enjoy using oils. And it's just, it feels like a more natural process, especially when you're rubbing it in as opposed to spraying it. And also, I quite like the texture of the wood when it's got when you don't grain fill, but you put oil on, it still has a bit of texture on it. I love that. So Neil's saying he uses Epidox for resin, non-toxic, no stink. Haven't tried it for grain filling though. Epidox, I'll have to look into that. I found a like manufacturer that I used for when I was building some of the Ghostbuster guitars a few years ago. That was really good, but you had to buy it in bulk because it was like for industry stuff, and I can't really justify buying bulk stuff when I'm not making lots of guitars with it because it was so expensive. But it was really good. I think there is definitely a difference between some of the more industrial ones and the ones that I've seen on Amazon. But I think some of the ones on Amazon are just like cheap, really, really cheap, dodgy stuff, really.
Yeah.
Yeah, loads of people talking about their processes in the chat. Fantastic. So look, I love chatting about our processes, but it always leads to us saying, I wonder what everyone else does, and everyone else talking about it. And I'd love to hear your voices. It'd be great if anyone does want to come on. Hey, we can always do if anyone thinks they want to come on but not sure what to chat about, it would always be good to do an old school style thing where you come on and we have a chat about what you do and what you like doing, and find out more about you. If anyone's got a suggestion of someone to get on, let us know. The one reason we stopped doing it is it took up so much of my time trying to contact people, coordinate with them, time zones and stuff. So we're always doing it so we're often doing it at different times each week. But here we've got a set time we're doing. So sometimes if we want to invite someone, they might not be able to meet with our time. But if they can, why not? Why not have them on? Hey, Mark, should we say goodbye?
Yeah.
All right. And I think we've got next week. Let me just check on the schedule. I can't check the future ones while I'm in the middle of the stream. But I think we've got next week and then the week after. And then you probably have got the week after that because Christmas falls at the wrong time of the week to interfere with us. So it should be fine. So we'll just keep going. Fantastic. All right. Thanks, everyone. Tell everyone about it. Bye.
See ya.
What an ending.